It is a huge weekend for the Dodgers as they face the revamped Padres. Three-game set starts tonight. Coverage begins here on 1140 The Bet at 6 p.m. And here to help us navigate everything in that series and the trade deadline is Audacy MLB insider John Heyman. Insider calls are brought to you by Driveway.com. Looking for a car, go to Driveway.com where you can get pre-qualified, buy a car, and get it delivered.
Welcome back to the program, John. It has been too long, but this seismic week and the MLB trade deadline, there's nobody better to enlist than you to break all of this down. But before we get into the Padres and the Dodgers, I got to ask you about pretty much the beacon of consistency in this year's season. Before the season started, Aaron Judge decided to bet on himself contract-wise, is now flirting with the single-season home run record. Where does this rank in your calling your own shot pantheon, and how disastrous would it be for the Yankees brand and organization if he were to wear any other uniform besides the pinstripes?
Yeah, I guess the calling your own shot, I mean, that makes me think of Babe Ruth in the World Series against the Cubs, but great job by Judge. Certainly bet on himself, and he's won big. I mean, there's no question about it. At this point, in my mind, he's clearly the MVP in the American League, and he's in the driver's seat in terms of negotiation. What he asked for before, I'm sure the Yankees will have to pay that and probably more. So he was looking to be in that range right there with Garrett Cole and Trout, Rendon, that $35 to $37 million a year range. And I think he's proven that he's worth every bit of that, and he may get even more than that. So good for him.
Well, if anything, the legend continues to grow, and we know that New York loves a narrative, but the narrative has shifted in the NL West, or at least it's seeming to be. The Padres make a big splash with the Juan Soto trade, but the Nationals get a big haul for him and Josh Bell back. We know what the timeline for the Padres is in terms of their urgency. It is time to win now. But where does this leave the Nationals in their timeline? They're only a few seasons removed from the title. I mean, is this milk it and slow rebuild until you have a core worth supplementing again?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Nats did well. I mean, they got a haul of prospects, so they're in good shape for the future. Not this year, not next year, but, I mean, Robert Hassel going to be a great hitter. James Wood is going to be, I don't know if he's going to be the next McCovey like they think, but he's going to be awfully good. I like Mackenzie Gore, could be an ace. I thought they did great. I really did. I thought the Nats did great, but obviously the Padres were the big winner this trade deadline season.
And, John, I don't want to be negative because I applaud the Padres for really going after it. And, of course, going up against the Goliaths that is the Dodgers and all the talent on L.A. But for the Padres, are they really going to re-sign Juan Soto and put him with Tatis and Machado? Because I can't imagine that they're going to keep that core. That is mighty expensive for a quote-unquote small market team.
Well, we couldn't imagine that they were going to sign Eric Hosmer, if you remember, even at $140 million. Then we couldn't imagine that they were going to sign Manny Machado. Then they went and signed Tatis for $341 million. Now they've obtained Soto. So I'm never betting against them. You would think it's out of their price range, particularly after he turned down the $440 million. But, you know, they obviously want to win. They're putting winning first. I wish every organization did that. I applaud them. I think it's terrific.
Yeah, it's always good to see teams bet on themselves as well as players, but there's so many teams that are kind of in the mix right now. We still have quite a bit of season left, but not that much. So your thoughts on the red-hot AL West, or not AL West, just the AL wild card race, because even the Red Sox, who get beat up at least a couple times a week, seem to be hanging around with the rest of that division.
Well, Baltimore decided to sell. They're kind of on the cusp of the race, so, you know, I wouldn't bet on them at this moment. You know, I get it. A small market team, their ownership is fighting with each other. Boston, too many injury questions, I think. They've had a rough season compared to what we thought from them. You know, I mean, it's Seattle's to win at this point, I think. I mean, they haven't been in the playoffs for 2 decades. That's not easy to do when you're a big market team, or at least a high revenue team, to not make the playoffs for 2 straight decades. You wonder what goes on there. You would think that they will grab that final spot, but you know, I don't think anybody's made any money betting on the Mariners in the last 20 years. So we shall see. Unpredictable, but you would think Seattle is in good position.
Audacy MLB insider John Heyman joining us here on the Playmakers. And John, the most baffling team to do either nothing or minimal moves out of these four teams? The White Sox, the Rays, the Mets, or the Guardians?
Well, the Mets did some stuff. Well, I didn't applaud them at the New York Post. I kind of took them to task. I'm kind of feeling maybe bad right now with Naquin hitting 2 home runs yesterday. You know, they did get a platoon at the DH, adding Vogelbach and Ruff. They added Givens. So I wouldn't say the Mets. You know, I kind of think maybe it's the White Sox, so they don't have a lot of prospects left to trade. It's been a rough year there. They're hanging around the race only because they're in a very, very weak division. Thought that maybe they would try to take advantage. The Twins ended up trading for 3 pitchers. So I give them credit. They got Maley, who I think is really good, underrated from the Reds, Jorge Lopez, Fulmer. So I think compared to what their main competitor did, I think the White Sox really were a loser.
But the thing is, John, is that the AL Central is kind of like the NFC East where somebody has to win it, I guess. And I'm a Twins fan, and I know that everybody's excited about going to get some pitchers, but we know what happens in the first round of the playoffs, especially when they play against the Yankees. And I'm just like, well, even if they do end up playing a wild card team, in many ways that wild card team could probably be stronger than what the Twins are this year and what they've had to face on a consistent basis.
Well, that may be the case, but you never know what can happen. I mean, if they're playing the Yankees, I think we know what's going to happen. But
no wins.
You know, I'm not going to count them out against somebody else. It does feel like the Yankees have their number, whether it's psychological or what. But they'll be playing somebody else in that first round, so you know, I'm not going to count them out. I like what they did. They have very good lineup, and they needed to improve their pitching, and they did that. So I applaud them.
Which NL division leading team do you think is most vulnerable at this juncture? We know that the Cardinals are locked in that battle with the Brewers, but, you know, the Dodgers now have a lot more competition, but plenty of room to breathe in terms of the divisional lead. But the Mets you've already mentioned as well. Who do you think is most vulnerable in terms of that long-term postseason success this year that we're all looking for?
Well, I'd say vulnerable might be the Brewers. At this point, they're now tied for first, and they had been in front, and they had a rough trade deadline. They traded Hader. I mean, I think everyone in the clubhouse was not too pleased about that. To be in first place and trade perhaps the best closer in the game, that certainly doesn't lift the spirits of the guys in the clubhouse. And he's looked good with San Diego so far. Meanwhile, they've lost 2 games out of the bullpen since they traded Hader. You know, I understood that trade to some degree. What I didn't understand from them is how they didn't really add any offense. They did get Ruiz, a young potential center fielder, in that deal. Maybe he will provide a little bit of offense, but I thought they needed a proven bat. A lot of the proven bats came out of that Central. Maybe they didn't want to trade with the Brewers. I don't know. I mean, Happ was not traded. Contreras was not traded. Drury, another guy, went to the Padres. I mean, he's like the 4th guy who went to the Padres. You know, Brewers really did very little. Like I said, I'm not going to kill them on the Hader deal if they had done something else to counterbalance it, but I think that's a real downer for the team, and I think it's showing so far.
No faith in Devin Williams, though, for the Brewers?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a good pitcher, but he's great as a setup man. You know, you now have him as, I mean, I guess he's probably the co-closer with Rogers. Still not a bad back end of the bullpen, but they're the best back end in baseball, and they gave it away.
And that's true. John Heyman joining us here on the Playmakers, and since we are home of the Dodgers here in Las Vegas, I kind of want to talk about what the Dodgers did. They took a flyer on Joey Gallo, low risk, high reward situation. Chris Taylor, Dustin May are expected to come back from injuries. Obviously not as flashy as the Padres and other teams for this trade deadline. But what'd you think of the Dodgers with what they did in the trade deadline and how they're looking as we head towards October?
Well, I like the way you put that, but you know, I could say that the Padres got arguably the best player in the game, and the Dodgers got arguably the worst player in the game. So, you know, maybe that wasn't as positive as the way you put it. But, you know, we just saw him in New York, and I don't know what happened. It just appears like he was one of those guys who never adjusted, was in New York for a little more than a year and hit around 160 in that period. I think it might be a little bit lower than that, but in that area. And just did not adjust to New York. I do think he'll be better elsewhere. I thought Milwaukee would have a nice spot. It's kind of the opposite of New York. LA, still a lot of pressure. We shall see. He does have talent, obviously. 2-time All-Star, 2-time Gold Glove winner. multiple-time 30 home run guy, so he doesn't have it in him, and probably worth a flyer. I like the way you put that, low risk, high reward. I don't know. We'll see if that reward comes in, though. I don't know.
We're all about positive spin of the unexplainable
That is
here of the
positive.
Playmakers.
That was very positive.
But
Yeah.
they don't. But to be fair, John, like I'm assuming the Dodgers front office is looking at all the players that are going to come back from injuries as they head into October as some of the trades. Like these are the additions to the roster, right?
I know. Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of players coming back. Bueller potentially, May, Taylor, and the players they have are performing fantastically. They have a terrific team. They have a great system. Arguably the best organization in baseball. They're fantastic. I mean, I was just talking about what they did at the deadline, which was, watch their competitor get, 3 outstanding hitters and a great closer, and they added a guy who's hitting 160. So at the deadline, it wasn't all, roses for them, but they are probably the best team in the game. They've played like it, and they have a lot of great players coming back. So, I mean, they're obviously in great shape. I was just talking about the deadline, and, you're not going to beat what the Padres did. I mean,
No.
The Padres improved immeasurably.
Yeah, but at least we have the embarrassment of riches that is the Los Angeles Dodgers. But speaking of just like straight up embarrassment, the Angels hit 7 solo home runs last night and still lost to the Athletics. I feel like it's bad news bears. Even their positive headlines have a negative lining. Trout is out for long term, and Ohtani is hitting multiple home runs a night after cramping the night before. But are the Angels best place for him? I know that trade rumors certainly quelled down, but where's the best fit for this man of many talents?
Yeah, well, I guess we're going to find out maybe at the next trade deadline. Certainly he seemed non-committal about staying with the Angels. They couldn't pull the trigger this time. It's very difficult. Trout is out. Rendon is out. Easy for me and rivals to say they should have traded him, but, it's difficult. If you're the owner, you've got a draw, a guy who's, everybody's got their eyes on. It keeps things exciting. Your other 2 stars are out. I get it. I'm not going to kill them. I understand they're in a tough spot, but his comments kind of suggested like maybe he's going to play it out as a free agent. I'm just reading between the lines. Don't know. He didn't say that specifically, but they haven't been able to win there, and certainly with him making $5 million now and probably worth $50 million a year, and them always staying under the luxury tax threshold, it's going to be even more difficult for them to win. And I'm assuming that he probably wants to win. So, they probably have him for another, year and plus, and probably that's it. But enjoy him while he's there.
Damn right. John, we were lucky enough to speak with Tim Neverett, who was actually on the call for the Dodgers with Rick Monday as the news came out. Of course, not only the trade deadline this week, but baseball lost a legend in Vince Scully. And everyone seems to have a memory. And of course, with your history in the game and covering it for so long, I'm curious for you, what's the one memory that sticks out in terms of Vince Scully?
Yeah, first of all, I'll say, he's the greatest baseball broadcaster of all time. I can't imagine anyone ever matching him, topping him 67 years. Just a fabulous entertainer, did it all by himself on the Dodger broadcast, and had a great story about everyone, knew how to set the moment and make things exciting every single game. Just the best who ever lived, no question about it. For me, he's a gentleman. I had a couple occasions to meet him. The most recent time was a few years ago. I was meeting with Dennis Gilbert, his agent, coincidentally, just a guy that I know who was an agent of players for many, many years, for breakfast in Beverly Hills, and we ran late. His next appointment was with Vince Scully, and Vince Scully came in, and my daughter and I were meeting with Dennis, or having a bagel with him in Beverly Hills, and he could not have been nicer to both me and to my daughter. Just a terrific, terrific gentleman. Not every legend is like that. He treated everybody very nicely, and just a classy guy. beyond being the greatest baseball broadcaster of all time, inarguably the greatest.
Yeah, some legends are just better in person, but I'm happy that we were able to get you on the phone today, John. Thank you so much for taking time to chat with us. We appreciate your insight, especially as we ramp up postseason baseball talk here on 1140 The Bet, something that we're very used to as the radio home of the Dodgers here in the Valley. Be well and stay hydrated, my friend.
All right, sounds good. Good talking to you. See you later.
There it is. That was Audacy MLB insider John Heyman. Insider calls are brought to you by Driveway.com. Head to Driveway.com today to shop more than 25,000 new and used cars in driveways nationwide. In their driveways nationwide inventory. Words are difficult to say. Making fun of Michigan is never difficult. We're talking Michigan hockey next here on the Playmakers.